I am a linear, left brain, logical thinking businessman. That's what I've done my entire life. I've taken the test, to be, are you right brain, left brain? I'm so far off the scale left brain, it's not even funny. My wife is a very creative. She's an artist in her own right. We went to Mont Saint-Michel in France. Spent the entire day there photographing and looking around. Gorgeous place. I take my $6,000 camera and lenses and just snap all day, composing really neat stuff and thinking I'm coming up with some great images, and I did. But we get home at night and we download everything onto a computer, and my wife's little $200 point and shoot. I liked a lot of her pictures better than I did, because she's just more creative than I am, and a lot of people are. Creativity is something that you're born with, and we're all creative to some extent. Some of us have to work harder at it to create the look that we call creative. I like the light painting because it allows me to be incredibly creative. I get to choose where I put my light on my subject, and then after I do that, I get to choose how I apply that light to the subject through the wonders of Photoshop. And so the real creative process in the light painting like I do really happens in the post-processing, in the editing, because there's so many opportunities to make a photograph look a certain way. A lot of times I don't know how I want it to look. I just start painting in my light, and then I'll see something, I get excited about this little piece of light over here, and I may spend 5 hours before I even know that I'd been working that long. So nowadays I have to set a timer when I sit down to do this so I can get up and move around every 30 minutes or 45 minutes, because I just get lost in the process. So when I say I'm not creative, my wife hates it when I say that, because she says you are creative. And I guess I am to an extent, but this light painting really affords me the possibility for a brain dead left brain person to be creative. Light painting's been around for a long time, since the 1800s. The very first recorded light painting that I know of is a doctor and a photographer got together and attached some lights to a female subject, to her joints, and they opened the shutter of their camera back in 1880 something and let her move. And the lights obviously recorded the position of her movements, which was pre-video days, at 1800s. So that was the first recorded instance of light painting that I know of. What we're doing has been around since like 2010, 2012, and it's a radically different style of light painting. Traditionally, light painting is just open the shutter of a camera, paint your subject with lights. When you hear light painting, that's typically what you see. If you look at the forums online and whatnot, it's one frame that the photographer has opened his shutter and done something with some kind of lights to create the look that he wants. Our process, my process, is totally different. I may take 250 pictures tonight of this statue that we're going to light paint. And then what we'll do is the very first picture I'll try to light the scene evenly so I get one base image to work with. I'll put that in Photoshop, totally darken it down, I can't see a thing. The pixels are still there, but all the subsequent images that I paint with my little flashlight will be painted into that subject by hand in Photoshop. You know, nothing ever works out exactly like you think it will, speaking of being creative. I fail a lot doing this. I have yet to do a light painting that when I got it back to the shop and I downloaded all my images, that I remembered to light everything the way I wanted to light it. And I think anybody that's doing what I'm doing will tell you the same thing, that they may have taken 300 pictures and only used 50 of them to make the subject. But my guess is even out of those 300, they're still having to manufacture light or something the way you want it to. It's like any other skill set. There's a learning curve. The first few light paintings I did were just awful. I never actually was shown how to light paint an automobile, and so my first attempt to do that with a little red Cobra is the ugliest thing you've ever seen. It didn't even much look like a photograph, much less a light painting. And the beauty of the light painting is you can get close, your light's close to the source. It's soft light. It really brings out the color of the subject. But I can't tell you how many frames I have just thrown away because they're just not usable in the final edit, the final process. So let's geek out for a little bit here. I know some of the photographers in the group that are watching this would love to know a little bit more about what I'm doing. I'm shooting a Canon 5D Mark IV. It's set on ISO 100, the lowest it'll go, to remove as much noise as possible with the longer exposures. My f-stop is at f18, so I get the maximum depth of field. It's on a rigid tripod. We're not going to touch this camera until we are done taking the 100 pictures or 200 pictures or however many we take tonight during this light painting process. So the focus is set. The stabilizer is turned off on the lens so we don't get any vibrations coming back to that. Attached to the camera, I've got a couple of gadgets. The first one is the Pluto trigger on the top, and I use that in conjunction with my iPhone to fire the shutter on the camera. And then in addition to that, I've got a cam ranger hooked up to it, which reads the internal parts of the camera. I can control the camera from that iPad because the cam ranger puts out its own Wi-Fi network and transmit the functions of the camera as well as the completed image to an iPad or an iPhone or whatever. So I will be carrying the iPad around with me during the evening after I light paint a certain section of the sculpture. I'll check on my iPad to see if I overexposed it or got it like I wanted to or whatever. So primarily I use two main lights for lighting my subjects. This one is a very powerful bright LED light, daylight balanced. The other one is just a handheld wand for doing smaller stuff. I do have just a plain old everyday flashlight for getting hard to reach places. I've got some smaller little flashlights if we were doing something intricate, but primarily tonight we will be using just the big light here and possibly the wand for some of the smaller objects we'll be light painting. I do have some poles over here that I will be attaching this light to, and possibly that one as well, to try to light the top of the sculpture up there. We need to get as close to the light, or get the light as close to the subject as we can to achieve what I'm trying to achieve, bring out the color and have the softness of the light. So that's it. Let's go do this.